I'm Michelle Lupke and she, her, and I'm the program manager for the Swim Coalition. Shino, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your patience waiting for us to get this started. My name is Shino Tanikawa. I use she, her, hers as my pronouns. I'm the executive director of New York City Soil and Water Conservation District and a member of the Swim Coalition Steering Committee. Back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Shino. So today we wanted to talk to you about comment letters because there's some stuff in the works that will affect all of our water bodies. And if you're here, we know you care about clean water in the New York City area. So we want to talk about the power of a comment letter and some writing suggestions to help really make a strong letter. Then we're going to do just a very brief toe into the Harlem River UAA, why this matters for the Harlem River and your own water body that you care, or water bodies that you care about. We already did a deeper dive, quite literally, into the Harlem River UAA, and that was presented with lawyers who know what they're talking about. So if you're interested in more information on that, we will happily share the recording with you, and you can find out more information there. And then we want to do a letter writing workshop with you using a template that the Swim Coalition has created that you can then convert and use for your own purposes. So the power of
wait, Michelle, one sec.
Yes.
Since we are a small group, would we want to let folks raise hands with questions as we go along?
Sure.
Okay, I'll monitor the raised hands and I'll butt in if there are questions. So feel
Beautiful.
free to raise your hand when you have a question or put it in the chat and we'll just continue to address them throughout the presentation.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Shino. I love that. Okay, so we want to talk about comment letters and what really that they can do. And the best thing about not all comment letters, but in these types of comment letters where there is a public comment period, the agency then is required to respond to you. So if you write in a letter saying, hey, I have issues with X, Y, and Z, then whatever agency, in this case, it's going to be the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, so the DEC, the DEC is actually required to respond back in their written report at the end to all of the questions that they receive. So I think that that is a very, I think there's a lot of power and strength with that, because we will get our questions answered. Maybe not in the way we want, but it will also let them know what we're worried about. It also creates a written record that can be referenced. So sometimes what we'll do when we're writing a letter is we will reference previous letters, and we'll put them in the footnote, and we have them on our website, and we just want the city or the state or whatever agency to know that this is something that we have been standing behind for a long time, and this is something we still care about. These are our reasons why, etc. And then the other thing that I think is really great about comment letters is that sign-on letters, so not necessarily a comment letter sent by each individual group, but one letter coming from a large group can demonstrate unity, solidarity, and broad support among both individuals and organizations. And I should say that as we're going through this, because we're the Swim Coalition and we have over 70 member organizations, this was kind of written with the intent of what an organization might do, but the same advice applies if you're an individual who cares about your water body. The only things that are mainly different is that when I'm saying synthesize and align your messaging to fit with the organizational missions and goals, maybe you don't have organizational missions and goals, but you still have things that you care about. So if you're an individual, welcome. So like I was saying, I feel very strongly that the broader, more diverse a coalition, the more agencies and electeds take notice. I don't know that that's true, but I feel that that's true. Otherwise, it can become, oh, here come the environmental groups again, and we don't want that. We want to see a broad coalition. We want to see justice groups, and adding various viewpoints and unique viewpoints into our letters. So suggestions for writing the comment letter: read the bill, the report, the study, whatever it is you're writing a comment on. I know it's really hard to read it. I end up reading them multiple times. I end up asking people for support because I'm not a lawyer. And so a lot of this is written in some tricky legalese. So that is when groups like SWIM and some of our member orgs who have lawyers on hand can read and synthesize the legalese for us. And so that's why we think that sharing letters is super important. We can reference one another. We can communicate high-level findings without getting into the details. And we leave some of the, so sometimes what I'll do is say, our colleagues at Riverkeeper, who is also a member organization and member of our steering committee, say X, Y, and Z. And so we support their findings of whatever it is. And so that's kind of how we sometimes get around not having a lawyer. And then ask other like-minded groups whether they're supporting, opposing, or supporting with changes, the bill or the report or the study or whatever it is that you're commenting on.
Let me just add here. I
Before.
don't want this first bullet to be a deterrent from people to write
Yes.
comments.
Yes.
Right, some of these plans are 1,000 pages long with appendices, and there's no way anybody would fully understand some of these plans and proposals. There are executive summaries that are readable, usually in a more digestible form. So if you can read the executive summary or a summary of a bill, that's enough. I think for those of you who are representing yourself as a private New Yorker, you can focus on your own personal story about why this is important to you. And you can definitely focus on why you want your water body to be fishable and swimmable all the time, right? That it could be that direct and simple. I don't think you necessarily have to understand the legal context and the legal background and the technical aspects of everything that's in the plan. You can be an advocate for your own water body in your own words.
Thank you, Shino. That's a really great point. And yeah, yes, I try to read these. I don't necessarily know what I'm reading, and and I'm a professional at this. So that is absolutely, I read the executive summaries a lot, and I talk to other people about what it is and come to understand it through conversations with people. So that's one of the things that we really wanted to do today too, is talk to you all about what this means, not only for the Harlem River, but also your water body. I keep trying to make eye contact with you all on the side of my screen, but I'm realizing you can't see me. So the way I can make eye contact is to look there and make eye contact with you. So yes, and then attend any public meetings or hearings, ask questions, draft an outline for feedback from others, and then make sure to submit prior to the deadline to ensure your comments are considered and answered. So what we're going to do today is show you essentially how SWIM creates our letter. And what it is we take what other people have written and then we distill it down and create a shorter letter with main talking points. And that is the template that we share with our SWIM members and what we're going to be sharing with you today. So I really see the role of the SWIM Coalition in this in this context as widely sharing information, not only about what's happening, but what we can do to try to prevent it. Any quick question, or you don't have to have a quick question, you can have a long question. Do we have any questions before we move into the Harlem River UAA? On just like comment letters in general. No, we're looking like we're good. Okay, great. So the Harlem River UAA, and that is a use attainability analysis. It is something that the Clean Water Act requires. And essentially, New York State has water quality standards for these best uses, and they are SB, SC, SD, and I classifications, and they mean different things. So I is only for secondary contact recreation, whereas SB is primary and secondary. Um, there's an ongoing lawsuit by groups in the Swim Coalition about these water quality designated uses, but uh, they used DEC had established SD and I as primary contact recreation, which is swimming, which the EPA approved, but then the state has tried to walk that back, which is why there's an ongoing lawsuit. So these standards here are state law, but are not approved by EPA for federal law, just so you know. But the main thing that we want to talk about is this one, which is the newest designation, which is an SBWW. It's a wet weather exemption. And again, they talked about it at our last one, but essentially what it means is we're going to call it really good. We're going to call it SB water, except after it rains, because then you're going to get CSOs. And in the case of the Harlem River, that's 1.9 billion with a B gallons of CSOs every year. So they're saying, Harlem River is basically as good as it gets. And not just the Harlem, a number of water bodies. They're as good as they're going to get. We don't have to do anything more. So the downside, which we see a lot of this, the downside of this wet weather designation is that it allows for CSO discharges in perpetuity, basically enshrining the status quo. The benefit is that during the periods during dry periods, the water quality standards are actually more stringent than what they currently are. But we don't think that this is an all or nothing thing, which is why we're talking to all of you to basically change this. So currently, this is what our water quality standards are. So what we're talking about transitioning or changing are the orange and the red areas, and not all of them, but some of the areas in orange and red. So the red is class D and the orange is class I. And then there's also this other part of the city, no shade to Jamaica Bay. We want to make sure they get equal time. So yeah. So currently the first use attainability analysis that has been released is for the Harlem River. And if you'd like more information, like I've said, on the 6 factors the UAA uses as criteria to remove a designated use, please watch our previous video where the lawyers discuss these in greater detail. But these are basically the 6 factors that are taken into consideration. So this is essentially what we're asking for. The state is proposing a UAA, which would allow for ongoing CSO discharges. Like I said, 1.9 billion gallons a year just into the Harlem River. The best use is not protective of swimming, and there's no mechanism to review or update for more CSO reduction moving forward under this wet weather designation. What we think is a better option, and what we're advocating for in our comment letter, and what we're hoping the water community and environmental groups and other justice groups will advocate for, is that if we do short-term variances, they're 5-year variances, it allows for incremental enforceable improvements. So essentially you can ratchet it down and say, let's focus on these water bodies first, or these CSO areas first. These discharges, reduce those, and you will improve the water quality in the receiving body um, uh, in a much more substantive way. Um, and that it would be protective of swimming. And these time limited variances would be able to be reviewed regularly and allow for robust public input. So we think that a better option is to call it an SB if they want to change the water quality standard, change it to SB, no wet weather designation, but put a variance on it. Say, we understand you're not at SB yet, but we know that you're working towards it. And this, we're also asking on the DEC to be a leader in this, because the city's goal is to achieve zero CSOs by 2060. And a permanent UAA in the Harlem River and all the other water bodies would undermine that goal. So we really want to see that get to zero CSOs by 2060. So here's the bottom line of what we're asking for. The status quo is it stays designated as a class I, which is secondary contact or boating only. There continue to be 2 billion gallons of water of CSOs discharged annually, and no additional CSO reduction is considered. What could happen, and we don't want to happen, is that the UAA is established, which establishes the best use as less productive than primary contact. And we still have 1.9 billion gallons of CSO per year. What we want to happen is we want it to be reclassified as SB, which would protect swimming with a time limited variance to allow for further CSO reductions considered. And obviously with public input, because there are plans that the public has to do green infrastructure and all other types of CSO reduction, but they're not being considered. So I've been talking about the Harlem River and referencing that other water bodies are slated to as well, but this is what's happening. So all the other SD and Class I waters, so the East River and its tributaries, Newtown Creek, Arthur Kill and Kill Van Kull, Jamaica Bay tributaries, and Coney Island Creek. And so the UAA in all of these instances poses a false dilemma of an all or nothing choice. And they're saying we can only, if we were to stop all the CSOs, it would be a tunnel that would cost $9 billion to build. And since we can't devote $9 billion to getting Harlem River to zero CSOs, therefore we're not going to do anything. So if the state accepts this all or nothing approach, then we're going to get nothing. And that can't be, because there's all sorts of in-betweens that were never considered. So our main talking points for this Harlem River and other rivers, UAA, is that we oppose this proposal. And it is really important to state this clearly and early in your letter. Reclassifying the Harlem River will eliminate any future investments in water quality improvements. It is not an upgrade if it means that the Harlem River will continue to see nearly 2 billions of gallons of CSO discharge every year. And not all the options to make the Harlem River fishable and swimmable have been fully explored. So, as stewards of your water body, these are another talking point for you that let's say you care about Coney Island Creek. As stewards of Coney Island Creek, we care about the outcome of this process because we want Coney Island Creek to be fishable and swimmable even after rain events. The proposed reclassification is dangerous, and we don't want this precedent to be set. That is essentially a divestment in water quality improvement. And we need a comprehensive analysis of all alternatives to improve water quality, including green infrastructure, before reclassifying the water bodies. So those are the main talking points that we've come up with. Does anyone have any questions here? Oh, I see there's some chats. Oh, great. Oh, thanks, Shino.
You're
Beautiful.
welcome. I encourage folks to look at the presentation made by the DEP.
Mhm.
Although you may actually buy into what they're trying to tell you, but you'll understand why this is actually a citywide issue, because they clearly say list the other water bodies that they want to move with this initiative.
Yeah. Yes. So it's not just the Harlem. I know we're talking about the Harlem because Harlem's first. But what we need to do is have a large community showing for this Harlem River UAA saying we don't want this in all of our water bodies, including the Harlem River, but also the water body that I care about the most. Great. So what can we do? There's a number of things we can do. If you have a close relationship with your elected official, we have an elected sign-on letter that we are trying to get more and more electeds to sign on to this. So if you have a relationship and your elected is not, Shino, do you have the link for that? Can you put
I'm
that?
sorry,
The
elected,
sign-on? Thank you.
yes.
Perfect. So you can look to see the sign-on letter to see who's already signed on. If you have a relationship with another elected official who you think might support this, please share that with them. We want to get the most electeds that we possibly can on this. Next week is when the public hearings start. So there's a virtual one on June 16th, and there's an in-person one at the DEC office on the 18th. We encourage you to go to that. And then we encourage you to obviously submit a comment letter, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So for a letter writing workshop, we want to make this pretty interactive, especially because it's a small group. So I just want to introduce the letter and kind of how I write them, and then I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I can go in and share my screen of the letter that template that we wrote, and we can talk about it. So really up to you if you want to work on it together or if you want to kind of discuss it as a small group. So just a quick overview for the swim comment letter template. Basically what we do is we make an outline of our major points, particularly the parts that we oppose, support, or support with changes. It's a formal letter format and including physical and email addresses, even if you're just emailing it. And then if you have letterhead, put it on your letterhead. And
good news, we have Mike Dulong from Riverkeeper in the house. Hey, Mike.
good. If anyone has
Everyone.
any legal questions, we know who to direct them to. So the first paragraph is just introducing the issue and making your overarching point. The second paragraph, introducing your group and your stated mission and goals. Again, if you're an individual, you don't need to write about your group, but you can write about why you love your waterway and what you do in your waterway and what you would like to be able to do in the future were it cleaner. The middle paragraphs, however many you need to make the point, is the info you get from the Swim Coalition or the lawyers organized into headings. I've already done that for you. So if you want, you can copy and paste it. If you want, you can edit it into your own words. You can edit it down, make it more concise, whatever you want to do, however you feel comfortable. And then last paragraph, summarize it, bring it back to your group, and thank them for their thoughtful review. So we have a template letter that we created for you all. that I just put into the chat. And we encourage you to make a copy, rename it, save it to your computer, and then let's dive in. So the question is do you want me to share my screen with the letter, or do you want to have an open forum to be able to ask questions and things here?
I like the letter idea.
Okay. We have a new email, Willis. Right there. We're fancy now. Yes, thank you. Please reach out to your electeds.
Thanks,
Okay,
Michelle.
sure. Thank you. Okay, I will. Here we go. Share my screen. Great. So, I tried to make it pretty easy for you. Here, I'm gonna close that so we can see more of that. Perfect. So I would, if you have letterhead, put it on your letterhead. We put our email or our website up in the address part, but if it's in your letterhead, then you can save space. Letters are due to be received by 11:59 on June 26th. And this is who it gets emailed and or mailed to. Gwendolyn Temple at the DEC. And then here it's always sort of regarding, and then whatever it is you're making comments on. This one happens to be a quite unruly title. But again, you all have access to this. If anyone has trouble accessing the file, let me know. But otherwise, I set it up that anyone who has the link should be able to get in there. I just ask that you don't make changes in this one, since this is the template for everyone. Make a copy, save it to your own computer, and then make your changes. And then here is where this paragraph is sort of what we talked about, where we introduce ourselves, but here for your group, it would obviously be your group's information. And then in addition to the UAA, and Mike, please correct me if I'm wrong here. I think that it's an opportunity to oppose reclassification of the 30 water body segments that they are that they're trying to reclassify in this order. The DEP even admits that the Harlem River UAA, in the Harlem River UAA, that reclassification was required to meet the Clean Water Act requirements, which tells me that they just have to basically play around with semantics and classification changes in order to feel like they're actually satisfying the Clean Water Act rather than substantively improving water quality. Am I wrong on that one, Mike? Sorry to put you on the spot.
So it's a complicated thing that they're doing. We know that basically what they're getting at is what is the status quo with the long-term control plans, right? What can they achieve, not now, but once the long-term control plans are implemented? And we know that there is no meaningful change here because the economic impact statement or the regulatory impact statement names that there will only be about a $17 million investment in a wastewater treatment plant in Staten Island. So everywhere else will receive basically no benefit or no impact. That said, there is an increase in some of the protections under state law, such as the Hudson River at Manhattan right now is not a swimmable waterway, or it is not, the state is not classifying it as a swimmable waterway. The state aims to make it protected under state law as a swimmable waterway. That doesn't do anything under federal, according to the state, that doesn't do anything under federal law, right? The use that it's designating SC is for fishing. So it's a super complicated thing that all boils down to there is no change in actual water quality on the ground or in the water. There is only a change in some cases, a ratcheting up of protections in terms of what the designated use of these waterways is.
Okay.
Sorry, that's not helpful at all because it is really, really confusing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so then let me ask you this question. Is it wrong to say to voice opposition to the reclassification of these water body segments?
For the most part, besides the Harlem River, I would not advise objecting to any increase. I would say that New York State has taken this position in the past, right? And the water quality standards seem very clear. So SC is these waters shall be suitable for swimming. Then, or it says the best use of these waters for SC is fishing. But then it says these waters shall be suitable for swimming. That shall be suitable language, the state has taken the position that that doesn't actually count for the purposes of the Clean Water Act, that they never actually meant that to be a binding requirement. That is just New York State's hope above and beyond what the Clean Water Act requires. So I would say if you were getting a Class C or SC for your water body, you should say that's good. That's probably an improvement over what it is right now, maybe Class I. But that is not protective enough, that the standards should be SB so that the best use of that waterway will be swimming, and that'll be a protected use under the Clean Water Act. So sort of a yes and. This is good, right? We want this to be SC. Thank you for acknowledging that this water needs stricter protections and that it can achieve stricter or better water quality. But we want you to go further. We want you to make it SB, and we want swimming to be the best use of this waterway.
Okay. Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you. So then maybe this first point is not correct, y'all. The second one is our opposition to reclassification of the Harlem River to SBWW. And I kind of broke it into the class change is not an upgrade. They need to pursue additional green infrastructure initiatives, reject the Harlem River UAA, reject the New York City's financial capability analysis. This comes directly from the lawyers, and then support Class B with temporary variances. And then I ended it with the New York City or New York State DEC should use its authority to support the city's goal of zero CSO by 2060, rather than allowing these UAAs to discharge in perpetuity. And then at the end, it's use your signature and then CC other recipients. So this is the template letter that we have so far. So I'm going to stop share and encourage folks to raise hands, come off mute, or otherwise ask questions, voice concerns. We have a lawyer, so if you have other questions, maybe he'll help answer things. Thanks for being here, Mike.
First question, Michelle. If another group's going to not either sign on or use this as a template, is it better to change some of the wording so it doesn't look like we just took something and then made a rubber stamp? I mean,
Yeah, that's what I tend to do is I
yeah.
tend to like rewrite things into change things around, use my own language just so that they're not getting the exact same duplicate letters.
Mhm.
But sometimes some of the things are written in such a way, like the financial capability analysis. I took that from what Riverkeeper had written because they had actually paid somebody to do a financial analysis. And so I wasn't going to try to interpret their words. I just used their words. But yeah, other places, feel free to rewrite it, make it your own words, make it your own letter. You can shorten it. Some groups may not take a position on certain things. Some may take an additional position on things. But yeah. And I think you can definitely tailor it to be talking more about your waterway and what a Harlem River UAA might potentially be to your waterway. Although you care about the Harlem River, don't you, Joel?
Yes.
Yeah.
All rivers.
Yes, exactly.
But also, I mean, also maybe adding, we have a lot of our work you could say about health effects. So, I mean,
Yep.
we could definitely
Yep.
embellish. Okay.
Yes, exactly. If you have other things, because Swim Coalition's mission is clean water and Clean Water Act goals of fishable, swimmable, that's where we tend to keep our comments. But if there are other things that align with your group's goals, obviously add them. Yeah. And BCQ and Harlem River Working Group, they're going to have, or whatever Harlem River Working Group's new name is. What's your new name?
Is it Harlem River Coalition?
Oh yeah, coalition,
I think.
something like that. Yeah, you're going to have all sorts of other information to add into it that, yes, that would make your letter more robust. I think that's great.
And what about, I guess, is looking for Michael's thoughts on this also, even adding the New York State Green Amendment that is sort of a platform that New York is dedicated more to the whole clean environment, and um, I think it gives a stronger underpinning for what we're asking for.
Great.
Yeah, no reason not to mention Green Amendment. I think that's a perfectly reasonable argument.
And who at the hearings? Who usually shows up? I've been to hearings, but who do you think is going to show up at this the hearing in person? Is what people coming down from Albany, or they're just going to appear in person or not?
I don't know. I was assuming that the people, you mean giving the presentation or attending?
Giving the presentation. I was just wondering who's there from the state. I mean,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the city presenting this to the state, right?
right.
So it would be DEP presenting it? Or is it DEC conducting the hearing?
It's the DEC hearing.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, DEC should be conducting this and
Yeah.
would give a presentation on it.
Okay.
Whether it's the Albany staff or they're going to delegate it to the regional staff, I don't know. I don't even know who the division of water person is in Region 2.
I think it'll be Albany staff. They've traditionally come down for stuff like this. And
Yeah.
DEP may be in the room and they would be the best people to answer questions on it. But I don't expect DEC to open up a question and answer period on this.
But to allow informal talking, I mean, I've been in hearings where it seems that the best lobbying was after the formal session took place.
I couldn't hear you, Joel. I'm sorry, a train was going by here.
Sometimes at hearings I've gone to, it seems like the best impression we made was after the formal hearing. That there's still not, we pulled people aside and we spoke and tried to find the sympathetic ears.
Yeah, I think they would answer questions off the record privately.
So the changes, I'm a little confused also, the changes, especially you're saying is an upgrade on paper in terms of protection, right? The change in the classification?
Sorry, say that again.
Right.
The classification now, the proposed classification
Mhm.
entails stronger protections than before?
Well, that's also a really complicated question. So we have a disagreement with the state on whether this is an upgrade or a downgrade. And our position is that they had made all these waters safe for swimming, and EPA has approved that. That's also EPA's position. And I say they've made it safe for swimming. Obviously, these waters are not there yet, but they have set the goal, the designated use of these waterways is safe for swimming. DEC said it never meant that, and it has a court opinion sort of deferring to them, a state court opinion deferring to them, but this issue is still live in federal court. So where does that leave us? We are not using, Riverkeeper is not using the term upgrade here, but we are talking about whether they're setting these criteria at the appropriate levels for these waterways. I do think there's a difference between, a head-end tributary that's receiving a ton of CSO and a water that's doing a little better. And so I think there is some room to find differing water quality standards throughout the city. But we're just hoping that DEC gets to the right levels. We don't think they've done that on the Harlem River.
I think for those of us who are not lawyers at the level that, the amazing folks at Riverkeeper are, to me, this is a simpler question of what do we want for our water bodies to be? And I would like the Harlem River to be fishable, swimmable, regardless of if it rained yesterday or not. And that this isn't the way to get there, right? What this does instead is it lets the government off the hook from investing more resources to making it to that personal goal of mine. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about whether this is an upgrade or downgrade. That's for the lawyers to discuss and the court to decide whatever. I think we know what we want, and we see that this is not the way to get there. And throwing for the Harlem River and some of the other communities that this might be coming down the pike for, Harlem River is the watershed that's been historically disinvested from public investment of any kind of infrastructure, right? You look at the Harlem River Drive, the Bruckner, the waterfront is cut off from the community with highways that the community didn't want. The community is cut off physically by the highways. They don't have the kind of amenities that Manhattan's West Side has. Now they're going to take this little investment away from those communities. So, why are you starting this in Harlem River? They need more investment, not less. So I think there's a lot we can say in our comment letters without going down the really technical aspect of this particular initiative. And you know your water body.
Oh, it's the lessening public investment, but with all the development projects, they're allowing private investment to go in. So I think we're even mentioning that is that they have to look at the whole overall, right? The hard and the soft surfaces, and DEC should also take a role. I think a legal platform that they should participate in better land use planning and all that. At least it's all about it. It's a lot of times on developments we try to bring a DEC to speak, and they're either silent or come down on the wrong side.
So can we count on you to submit a letter or show up at the hearing? Let's see a thumb up for people who are going to commit to doing this.
If I can get my
Awesome. Thank you, Peter.
Shino, if we get my water bottle back, I'll do it. We'll do it.
I'll put it in the mail for you so you'll have it before the hearing then.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. If you want to stay tuned on what's going on, let us know. Keep in contact. I'll add my.
Willis, go ahead.
I just have a question. The elected's letter is is written as it starts off as we represent the Harlem River. I'm wondering if, like, for Newtown Creek, like writing a separate letter with all the Newtown Creek elected officials and saying we're very
Yes,
concerned about what's happening in Harlem.
yes.
Because I just feel like they probably won't sign on to a Harlem River
Yeah,
focus letter.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Take the letter, copy it, make it applicable to you, and yeah, perfect.
Okay, great.
That'd be great. And that was sort of a co-written, M. Ruby at Riverkeeper and I have been working on a bunch of this stuff. So I'm
Okay, well,
sure they'd
we'll
be
tap
fine
on
with
you.
it. Yeah.
There is something specific in the Harlem River UAA that is citywide. So the Harlem River UAA looks at these four alternatives, right? It's 75% and 100% capture on the Harlem River, as well as 75% and 100% citywide. And so to use that, this like all or nothing approach to $102 billion, what DEC says is $102 billion problem. It's sort of a ridiculous way to go about this. There's so many things between here and $100 billion that the city could do. And so, but that affects everybody, right? That affects Newtown Creek, that affects all the other waterways in New York City that have great needs. And the city sort of, they're sort of double counting, right? And you'll see how they count Newtown Creek, and they'll just say it's like a $5 billion problem on Newtown Creek or something, to go, maybe it's even more than that, to go from 0 to 100% or 0 to 70. They don't even look at 75% because they're getting so close, right? But they don't factor in that they're already spending so much money there to reduce CSO. They don't reduce that from the cost of the getting to 100%. And they don't do that for Flushing Bay, and they don't do that for anywhere else where they're doing a significant improvement. So just worth considering that this will affect all the other waterways, and speaking specifically about the Harlem River UAA is something that I think you can do if you take a look at it and see how it addresses Newtown Creek and it addresses the city as a whole.
Mike, that's good information.
And what about CCing this letter to other people?
Far and wide.
Okay.
Yeah, I left that sort of to the group's discretion on who they have relationships with, who they want to see the letter. So yeah, go ahead, CC it to as many folks as you want to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, if anything comes up in the process after the hearings and you have questions for us, please feel free to reach out. Again, share this. We will share the recording. And so if you want to share that with other groups, We can attach the, oh, you know what we didn't do? The Harlem River fact sheet.
We can email it to folks
Perfect.
because
We'll send
everybody registered, so we have their email address.
beautiful. So we'll
Yeah.
send you the first presentation, the recordings of both these presentations, the fact sheet and the letter template. So you have all of that information moving forward. But again, feel free to reach out. I'm at advocacy@swimmablenyc.org. Update your address book if you haven't, because we are phasing out the old email.